Howdy, howdy, howdy. Happy to be here and happy you're here with me. And if you're new here and enjoy this type of content, I hope you'll subscribe. And please excuse the rooster. Our neighbors have a rooster that keeps getting out and he just crows all the time. There it goes. Alright, so today's video is again another unusual video, not the norm, and it is another challenge. Tracy over at Travel Crochet tagged me in a get to know you challenge. And so we don't have to make anything, we don't have to show anything, but I have lots to show you. Alright, and it is 10 questions that you have to answer, and I'm going to add a few little side notes, but I've got it on my little pad here, so of course I'm constantly looking at it. Did I bring my glasses? Obviously not. It just never fails, right? Remember this and remember that. I came in here to do this video and I sat down, pulled up the questions, and realized this is going to take a little more than just talking off the top of my head. You know, this is going to require a little bit of extra planning on my part, like pictures and so forth. So, and I bugged the hubby about what he thought too. Alright, so the first question is, how did you learn to crochet? So that's not a simple answer. When I was 9, I was sent to camp, and they taught me how to crochet a chain stitch with my fingers. And so basically that was just a loop around, well, yeah. Loop around, pull up a loop, put your finger in there, pull up another loop, and put your finger in there and pull up another loop. And that was basically your finger chain stitch. And I didn't really do anything with that other than make a whole bunch of chains. And my mother was a crocheter, but she didn't really know how to teach me because she didn't even know the name of the stitches that she was using, you know, so. And as far as I know, the only stitches she ever used was a single crochet and a double crochet. And at the time that she was making, you know, like baby blankets for her babies, she didn't know what those stitches were called. She couldn't read a pattern. She still to this day can't read a pattern. So I didn't really learn technically from her. I watched her work. I watched my grandmother work. But my grandmother, again, as well, did not really teach me. So, later on, let's see, it started at 9. So, by the time I was 12 years old, my parents had to go back to Maine. I'm originally from Maine, and we came to Texas, so they had to go back to Maine for a funeral. And the babysitter that they left us with was a Swedish woman. No, Was she Swedish? She was something over there. She was something. I don't know if she was Swedish or German, something over there in that area. But she had a very heavy accent, and I was doing my chains like I always did, and she was crocheting, and she asked me if I would like to learn. So she taught me how to make a single crochet, and I made a blanket for my Barbie doll, and that blanket was probably this big, but it ended up like this. I kept losing a stitch on each end. I didn't know how to fix it, so I ended up with a kind of triangle for my Barbie doll's blanket. And I really didn't pick anything else up until after I had left home. I really didn't crochet anything else until after I had left home. And when I got married young, my new mother-in-law taught me how to make a granny square. And I pretty much never put the crochet down from that point. I made granny squares. I made blankets. About 5 years later, my new husband we went traveling across America in his big rig, and I crocheted and crocheted. I crocheted our blankets for our truck and crocheted blankets for our house, and but I didn't, even then, I did not know the name of the stitches or how to read a pattern. And so in 2008, my sister-in-law gave me her old computer that she didn't want anymore. And it still worked, and so I got me some good old-fashioned dial-up, and because we lived in the boonies and you couldn't get anything else but dial-up. And anyway, I had been noticing for probably a couple of years that everything had a www dot something, you know, everything. You just pick up an item and it'll have a website on it. And so I saw the website on the Skein of Red Heart yarn, and I just like, well, let's see what's there. And they had a patterns category, and they also had a chart on how to read what you're looking at. And after many attempts of learning and trying and studying, I finally, it finally just all clicked together, and I could read a pattern. Now, mind you, I could read a pattern, but even today, there are so many different levels of writing patterns, of how people word things, or how people are sometimes very wordy, and sometimes they're not at all. You know, like a good old-fashioned crochet pattern would say single crochet 6, and the next line says 12. You know, it doesn't even say, you know, how many, you know, it just says 12 or 18, and you just got to figure out what you got to do to make that happen. And then there's other ones that says single crochet in the next stitch and double single crochet in the next stitch. And just, it was just like, what? By the time you read this big old paragraph, you know, so it was a really big learning curve of how to read patterns. And then I found a book at my local craft store. There was a book, and hold on. Okay, so there was this book right here, this book, and I picked it up basically because I wanted to learn how to do this blanket right here. I wanted to learn the ripple stitch. My friend already knew how to do the ripple stitch, but she lived way across town, and so that's what I bought this book for. But this is what I ended up making. I don't know if you can see that with all the glare, but little monsters in this book. Sugar and cream. I don't think it's out anymore. It's really old. But yeah, I saw those and I was like, I can do that, can I? You know, so I challenged myself to do that. And of course, you know, it had a stitch glossary, and I also used the Red Heart website just to confirm that that's what it was, you know. And for me, the Red Heart website was a godsend, you know, like, wow. It opened my world up to all kinds of things. And so I started trying blankets. I started trying puff stitches, and, you know, just, I even went as far as to making a blanket for my friend and incorporating puff stitches to where it made a heart in the center of the blanket. So I was experimenting with creating my own things. And then I went and got some complex patterns to do, and figuring out how to make them myself. And so, as you can see, I made this Harley Davidson blanket. It's a Grafdan for my husband. And then I made this penguin blanket out of little tiny granny squares. And you put them in the right position, and you make little half granny squares, and one half is this color and the other half is that color. I don't even remember how to do that anymore. You don't use it, you'll lose it, my mom always said. So yeah, I made that, but Lord knows how I did it. So I then just went from there and did this monster and all of his friends. So that was my very first amigurumi, was that monster. And I was pretty proud of him because in the pattern it called for felt pieces, and I figured out how to crochet those pieces. Not very pretty, but I did it. So that was my crochet journey right there. And so now we go to oh, I'm going to put this little picture up here. This is the very first picture I have of something I crocheted, and this was back in 2001. And it's just adorable. It's a little blanket. I picked up the yarn at there's a store we have here called Big Lots, and it was like $1 a skein. And yeah, so I picked that up a long time ago. I had so many other blankets that I had made throughout the years, but you know, they never actually had a picture. Or at least not a picture I could find on Facebook, because I lost a lot of pictures when my computer crashed. So next question. All right. What was your favorite thing to crochet? Oh, what's your favorite thing to crochet? Plushies. I mean, ever since I made my first plushie in 2011, that was it. I was hooked. I very rarely do anything else other than plushies nowadays. I might do the occasional washcloth, but I would really like to settle down and do a blanket, just for the peace of mind of just going back and forth, but I don't know. It just never seems to be enough time to do something like that, but I would love to get back to doing a blanket occasionally. If you could use one yarn for the rest of your life, what would it be? Well, that's easy. That would be acrylic. I grew up with acrylic. I used acrylic pretty much my whole life. I mean, just recently have I started using all these plush yarns and such. But if I could only choose one, it would be acrylic, because, you know, it's a staple. It's going to be around forever. And I love the way acrylic yarn also makes things very detailed. You know, like, you can be very detailed with acrylic yarn versus big bulky yarn. Like the details get lost in the big bulkiness of it. And so yeah, I would definitely stick with acrylic if that was my only choice. Alright, what is the weirdest thing you've ever made? Okay. So there's a couple of things that stick out in my mind as the weirdest thing that I have ever done. This would be the first one that I've ever done that was like top-notch weird. Never heard of them before. Still have never seen the anime that they're from. I think it says Sgt Frog was the anime. I have no idea. So that would be number one, is the weirdest thing I have ever made. And also the most challenging thing I had ever made. Well, one of the most challenging things. Second up would be the Pyron man. He didn't really have a name because I just did him based off of a picture. The local craft store was called Pyron's. It was an old man. It was his business. That was his last name. and I made that for him, and I just called it Pyron Man because, you know, that's the picture that was outside of his business, and he loved it. He put it up on a shelf, and he loved it. And I was very happy for that. Then there was this LP doll. I never ever heard of LP, and so I had to look her up, and of course when I was looking her up I had to check out her music because I really like all genres of music, and her voice is absolutely wonderful. And I'm gonna have to change my batteries. Okay, so where was I? Oh, LP. Phenomenal singer. A little unusual. So yeah, that was weird. And then there was the AT-AT Walker from the Star Wars series. That was definitely weird, unusual, and complex. So that is in the list as well. Alright, something I will never crochet. Well, that's pretty easy for me. That is wearables. Baby clothes, people clothes. I mean, I have done hats and scarves and mittens before, but as far as clothes, no way. It is just not in my brain to do those shapes, those things. I tried to make a sweater one time, and I gave it to my daughter, and it was so bad. It was cute, but it was way too small for her. So it gives me like anxiety that things won't fit people. So it's just a no. I crochet very tightly. I cannot make myself crochet looser. So things are not going to fit people. So clothes is definitely out of the question. Alright, let's see. I don't even know what number question we're on, but the next question is, where do you get your inspiration? Basically, this chaotic brain of mine comes up with some really weird things. I mean, I have some older patterns that really come up with some strange, weird things. And, but I do have a favorite pattern that I did. That is this one. I really felt like I challenged myself, and I just really felt like that was the peak of my creativity at the time, of course. But I also wanted to go back to the very first pattern I ever made, but it wasn't the very first pattern I ever released, but it was the first one I ever made. And it was this hippo, and it was big chunky hair. It was like, it had all kinds of struggles of sitting up because it was a big chunky head I put on it. And then the next pattern that I did was this owl pillow. So I really feel like I have grown, but in a way, because I have stepped down to big plushy yarn, I kind of feel like I have degressed instead of progressed. I don't know. Sometimes I look at my work and I'm like, seriously, Heather, this is where you're at now? what happened to your creativity, you know, your talent? Sometimes I feel that way. So, I get my inspiration a lot from myself, from other crocheters, seeing what they have done. Oh, that's so cute. I gotta do that. Or even other pattern designers. I mean, there are some fabulous, fabulous designers out there. Ones that most of you haven't even heard of because they are mostly all just acrylic yarns patterns, but there's just so many patterns that have been lost in the plush craze, if that makes any sense to you. But I still get very inspired by them. Okay, so I feel like I'm stumbling all over my words. Favorite things I have made so far. Favorite thing I've made so far this year. That would definitely have to be the sheep for the elderly couple. That was the highlight of my year. I don't see anything topping that for this year. That was the most awesome and precious gift that I've ever received and given at the same time. I received this awesome responsibility of making somebody extremely happy, and that was it. That was the highlight of the year. Crochet plans you're excited about for the future. I struggled hard with this question. There's always so many things that I want to do, but I know myself, and I know the realistic part of it is that they're not going to happen. I am going to sit here pretty much every day and crochet and do markets and do my videos. I don't really try to set myself any huge goals because I'm really not that kind of a person. I'm not. I can say I want to do something, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. That's just not my personality. So, as far as the future, I am looking forward to building and growing my channel to where it is more fun, I guess. I try really hard to be entertaining, not drastically, but a little bit. And so yeah, I don't really have any big giant future goals, but I am excited that, you know, maybe I'll be here. You know, kick cancer's ass to the curb and just be here, right? All right. Worst thing about crochet. So, hubby and I were trying to rack our brains about what is possibly the worst thing about crochet. And the consensus is the yarn, the supplies have taken over the house. And I'm not kidding. They have literally taken over the house. There is not enough room in this tiny little house for all of my craft supplies. I need a whole nother house just for my craft supplies. So that is the final answer. The worst part of crochet is the supplies. Uh, Favorite thing about crochet. So, for me, it is experiencing new patterns. It's creating new patterns. It's challenging myself to do more, do better, do. I love doing complex things. And so I'm going to put up some pictures of some things that I was super, super excited and happy about making that really pushed my knowledge, really pushed my brain. And of course, these are not my patterns, just things that really pushed me. And the dragon. I did 2 of these dragons, one in red and yellow and orange, and one in 2 shades of blue and white. And those really, challenged me. How to sew a round object onto a round object was the most challenging part of this dragon. And on the first one, I got so fed up with it, I just hot glued it on. I was so beyond frustrated with the dragon. I just hot glued it on there because I was so mad. That was horrible. So, and then I did the spider, which was phenomenal. Phenomenal. I can't think of who the pattern is from. I will find out and put these in the description. But yeah, that tarantula was awesome. And it was challenging because it has a metal frame structure inside, and you had to crochet pretty much around that. And yeah, it was way up there as far as challenging, but awesome. And hubby would say this was the most awesome thing I ever made, and that was Dale Earnhardt. And again, that was a really good pattern. I enjoyed that, but I only made it one time. Alright, and so where are we now? So those are the favorite things that I have made and love about crochet, about new patterns and challenging myself. Alright, worst and favorite things about being a crochet content creator. See, half the time I don't even think of myself as a crochet content creator, so this was a hard question. For me, the worst part of being a content creator is putting myself in front of a video, being mindful of my hands and being mindful of the hair, and you just putting myself in the mental state of making a video, because for me, with the being on the autism spectrum, it really makes me force myself to get into a certain mindset in order to sit in front of a camera and talk to it. I put googly eyes on it so I can pretend like I'm actually talking to a face. That's how I get through it. Put googly eyes on everything. um, and of course, the best thing about being a crochet content creator is the community, the engagements, the amazing comments and suggestions, and just the feeling of friendship. You know, yeah, there's the occasional one who has something weird to say, but most of the time it is all 100% wonderful engagement with the community. And I do feel like I have a few friends out of that as well, which is a little unusual for me. So yeah, absolutely 100% love the community and what y'all bring every video. Just wonderful people. Love you guys. Love you guys. Alright. I think I have answered all the questions. The only one left to do is nominate someone else to do this challenge. Well, you know, I find that very difficult to do, and so I'm going to say, if you are a content creator and I'm pointing my hook at you, and you want to get people to know you better, I say go ahead and do this challenge. It can't hurt. And it's kind of fun. It was very fun for me going back and looking at all the photos, and hubby is in the kitchen making noise. Going back through all the photos that I had on Facebook from way back when, and picking and choosing which ones were my favorites, which ones were challenging, which ones I hated, you know, which ones were so weird and off the wall kind of thing. and to look at where I was, how I started to where I am now. So that was really cool. Thank you, Tracy, for challenging me to do this. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.